So we'll go back to our Mr. Cadbury's.
No, we won't be buying in Mr. Cadbury's because that's really a habit.
What, never on a weekend?
Oh yes, and the odd Ben and Jerry's, but not a habit.
Right, healthy.
Healthy.
Let's start on that.
Well,
You've got some goals.
I've got some goals and you've got some goals. Who's going to start?
Yours are bigger than mine.
It's not about
First
size.
of all,
It's
this
not
is
a-
my husband, just in case you don't know, David. And he's a triathlete and he always has goals. And because of this whole COVID shit, basically, your plans have not gone smoothly in the triathlon world.
No, we had a big goal in 2019. I went to the World Championships and I came 10th. And now I'd like to be better. So I then booked in for a race in March 2020. And of course it was cancelled with 16 days to go. And I haven't raced ever since. So my preparations for 2023, which is a real goal, have been somewhat interrupted, but I've still got plenty of time. And if I put myself together and with the support of Caroline, who makes all the difference, I think we can probably achieve what we planned to achieve a few years ago, which is to be age group world champion in 2023.
Right, okay. And we need to start early. I mean, really, at the end of the day, lifestyle. We don't diet, although I have dieted many times in my life. Lifestyle. We try and make our exercise and our food a lifestyle.
Absolutely, and our sleep. So we think that the best formula for health and wellness starts with sleep, and sleep that is regular and tied in with your circadian rhythm. In other words, tied in with the sun coming up and the sun going down. So we try to go to bed early and we try to get up early. And I'm always up between 4 and 5 in the morning, every morning, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Sleep comes first. So everybody, if you're planning to get healthier this year, start with sleep. And I truly believe it's 60% of your health and wellness comes from regular 8 hours quality sleep, and then nutrition comes after that.
So basically, if you're not getting enough sleep and you are stressed, the whole dieting, using that word which I don't like using, food and exercise are not going to impact you as well.
No, your body is not prepared to take on strain, and in the athletic world we talk about stress added to rest equals growth. So while you're asleep, you are by necessity burning fat because you're doing some very low level exercise in your sleep, because you're cleaning your brain and your system is probably processing the last meal that you had and getting rid of the last bits of that. There's lots of reasons why sleep is so important, and 8 hours seems to be the magic number.
Right. So having said all of that, what are we doing differently in January? What have you decided that we are doing differently in January?
Did you agree with me though?
I'm just going with the flow.
Okay, so in January we've decided to do a bit of an energy stroke nutrition audit. By an audit, I mean we're going to be quite disciplined around what we eat and drink.
Yes. So basically we're going low carb.
We're going extremely low carb, quite deliberately extra low carb for the first 3 weeks of this particular audit. And we're also going to use eating windows. So we're only going to eat during an 8-hour window each day. And that might flex by half an hour each way, but we think it'll be about 11 o'clock in the morning until 7 p.m. in the evening. And during that time we can eat, but after that time, between 7 p.m. and 11 a.m. the next day, we will not take into our bodies anything with calories in it. So we'll be on water, perhaps black coffee, perhaps black tea or green tea, but certainly limit the calories right down to the minimum or even nil between 7 p.m. and 11 a.m. So we're going to go low carb and we're going to do eating windows for 21 days. And we're going to throw in 1 day a week where we fast for the whole day. And I think it's going to be
I'm
Monday.
not going to do that.
I'm going to do Mondays.
Yeah.
So I won't eat between Sunday 7 p.m. and Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Yeah, I tried that, and I'm not sure that it's good for a post-menopausal woman to do that, and B, I don't really feel the need to do it.
And I don't think I'll continue to do that, although I have done it for most of this year. I don't think I'll continue to do it with great discipline after the first 3 weeks of this audit.
Thank goodness for that. Because I feel guilty cooking when you're in the house and not eating.
But you see, I take hunger, and it's not completely strictly true in biological sense, but I take hunger to be the feeling my body gives me when I'm burning fat. So I celebrate it. I wander around the house saying I'm hungry.
Yeah, I can do that at certain times, but I just don't want to be regulated. I don't want you to tell me that I'm not allowed to eat every Monday.
I don't tell you.
I know, but I'm just saying I don't want to be told.
Yeah.
If I want to fast, then I'll fast. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what works for you and find out how you can sustain something. Although we're only doing 21 days, I'm generally a low carb eater.
So while I'm not obviously carrying too much fat, I think everybody could think about how much fat they're carrying and probably wish that they were
On the
carrying
inside as
a little
well as
bit
on
less.
the outside.
Caroline has done an excellent live just recently.
Wasn't a live actually. We zoomed, so
Zoom
it will be
call.
on YouTube about fatty liver.
And this really goes to show that you can't judge a book by its cover. And I may look fit, but actually I may be carrying far too much fat internally. And that's called adipose fat or visceral fat. And that's the fat that's going to kill you.
Absolutely. So what do we do? Let's go back to what we're going to do differently. We're going to do 1 meal replacement a day. This is what I was taking when I was doing my weight training, high protein, because that is really important.
And this is all about Dr. Ben Bickman, who is somebody that we use extensively for our professional knowledge, and we ask him often. And he lives in the States, so he's probably not watching this. But he is an insulin specialist, and he believes, and he's written a book accordingly, that we get sick because we don't control our insulin, and insulin is the cause of most sickness.
So what will you plan to eat during those hours? That's a very good question. So we'll be doing the complete meal for 1 meal.
Yeah, and that'll probably be our lunchtime or break fast meal, okay?
Maybe some fried eggs for breakfast, rid of bacon.
Yep, animal fats are fine, and if you are vegan or a vegetarian, you can get your proteins from greens, but it's a lot harder, and it's harder to get them absorbed into your bodies. So we subscribe to a fairly omnivorous diet, including eating some animal products.
Yes. Greens in an omelette.
And greens in abundance.
Yes.
Greens generally in abundance. Be aware that fruit is probably to be avoided if you're going very low carb, because it's nature's candy and it's jammed full of fructose, and anything with an O's on it, like fructose or lactose or multidextrose, are all sugars, and therefore are going to keep you out of ketosis.
We won't be doing lentils or black beans.
Won't we?
Because they're all carbs.
Oh yeah, too many carbs.
Yeah.
But generally, green leaf.
Normally we would do all of that, but during this 21 days we're going to be ultra strict.
Yeah.
And last time we did this, you dropped weight.
Very happily.
Just
88 to 82 kilos.
So I lost about 200 grams.
I lost 6 kilos very comfortably without any effort in that 21-day period, which sounds very fast, but then I'm a bigger person. I'm 88 kilos at the moment, and so 6 kilos is not as much. But for a smaller female, for instance, 6 kilos might be a bit too drastic. And really, what you're looking for in longer term measurements is 1 kilo a week is the maximum that I would suggest in long-term weight loss that you aim for.
We won't be eating fruit, and in fact we won't be having smoothies.
It's worth a point here. Many people believe in fruit as a staple, but we are not nutritional experts. We're not doctors, and we're not suggesting to you that you do what we do. What we are suggesting is that this is what we're going to do, and you should do your own homework around taking on anything that we suggest. But this does mean that for 21 days, for instance, if you do this, then you can't have alcohol because there's carbs in alcohol generally. You could do something very clean and spirit, but generally beer, for instance, not on. So for most people, this sort of a diet means giving up some of the things that give you pleasure, but you have to think about why they give you pleasure. Do they give you pleasure because you're with others and that bit you don't have to give up, for instance? So I gave up drinking actually in 1991, and I gave up smoking at the same time, and I haven't missed either of them in the last 30 years.
So alcohol doesn't really factor in. It's nothing that we don't really think about it because we're not alcohol drinkers.
But alcohol has become cultural in the UK, for instance. There is a heavy drinking culture, and it's a binge drinking culture, which couldn't be more damaging to you in terms of your liver health, in terms of your fat carrying capacity. Binge drinking is the worst sort of drinking. A healthy way of drinking would be to drink a glass of red wine on a regular basis, because there's probably enough good in a glass of red wine to offset any of the bad effects. And that comes down to dark-skinned fruit, which have something called resveratrol in them, and that's really good for you. It's also good at reducing free radicals, which is still considered to be a problem, although I have some arguments around that.
Also, I'll be exercising fasted. Will you?
I'll do much of my exercise fasted. As Caroline knows, I train probably 4 hours a day, and on that basis 3 of those hours will be done fasted and 1 would be done with some fuel, except obviously on the 40-hour fast of my 1 day a week when I don't eat anything. And I still train. I'll still train for probably 4 or 5 sessions during that time.
And I'll be back using my Lumen toy here, which you
Breathe in,
inhale
and then exhale into.
and then exhale, and it tells you on your phone if you're burning fat or carbs. So I'll get up in the morning, go for my run, come back, and I will generally be fat burning.
And we like fat burning. As I say, it's to be celebrated. I wander around the house in hunger, and I don't go to the fridge to satisfy that hunger. I wander around the house and tell people how clever I must be because I'm burning fat.
Yes. Coffee, you drink coffee.
I do.
During all of that fast black.
Well, the great thing about coffee is, as far as we know, and you can find literature on the internet to support or disprove this point, caffeine has very few side effects, unlike alcohol or nicotine. But caffeine generally is a performance enhancer physically and mentally. Obviously, that enhancement gets less the more habituated you are to caffeine. And if you want to really perform, you should abstain from caffeine for 3 or 4 days before the performance. It might be an exam or a big debate, or it could be a sporting event. But if you abstain and then use caffeine, you'll get a huge boost from caffeine, which is the one drug that the World Anti-Doping Association would love to ban from professional sport because it has such a huge impact on performance.
You would also drink green tea in the evening?
I drink green tea in the evening, but I try to avoid all caffeine from about midday onwards. And the reason behind that is the half-life of caffeine is about 6 hours. So if you have a full leaded Costa or Starbucks at midday, then 50% of that caffeine is still in your system at 6 p.m. and 25% of that caffeine is still in your system, in your brain, keeping things fired up when they shouldn't be at midnight.
You haven't eaten yogurt for a while. You used to.
No, and I absolutely love live yogurt as plain yogurt but make sure it's plain, because the processed yogurts that you buy in most supermarkets don't have the goodness in them. And what you're doing when you eat yogurt or any other fermented food, or lots of the veg that you eat, is actually you're looking after the 90 trillion cells that exist in your microbiome. And when you imagine that we are only 10 trillion cells human, we're 90% alien. We're just here to cart this huge metropolis of bugs around in our colon, in our gut, and they are vital for your immune system. Anti-COVID, I truly believe that our health and our healthy living is our best defense against COVID, notwithstanding any vaccinations or anti-vaccination people. It's the best defense you've got against any illness is to look after your gut microbiome, and that's where yogurt can come in, because it's very good.
So brands you can recommend, you probably would you go for Greek? An organic Greek?
Organic Greek yogurt is, it's not a brand, but it's certainly a type of yogurt, and you want it to be live. It's a live culture that you're looking for, because that's what your gut microbiome really love. So I'm afraid, given that the audience here is from everywhere but probably America, where it's 3 o'clock in the morning at the moment, given that you're from all over the world, I can't suggest a brand. There will be a good, if it's organic, all the better, but make sure it's live. But the bottom line on this is that yogurt is good for you, almost certainly, although it's likely to be an animal product, and for some of you, that'll be a no-go area.
What are we going to eat during the day? Morning.
Well, that's the point. You see, everybody thinks they should eat all the time. Apparently, I read somewhere, the average American eats 15 times a day. But we didn't evolve to eat 15 times a day. Food was not that plentiful. But if you eat 15 times a day, in other words, every time you're hungry, you go to the fridge or you snack, then your gut never gets a rest. And that gut microbiome does never recover from all the hard work it does in breaking down the food that you need for fuel. So we won't eat during the day. We'll have our break of fasting. I don't want to say breakfast because it's going to be 11 o'clock in the morning plus. And then we probably won't eat again until our supper. And in between, we'll let our gut work its magic on our breakfast, on that lunch meal, whatever you call it, the midday meal. And once it's worked on that, it gets to recover. And it'll be fully recovered by the time we eat supper. And then it gets to recover for the next 16 hours after that before breakfast again.
And supper would be at 6:30.
We'd like to finish eating by 7. Now, there's a really good reason for that, and it goes back to sleep. Because you shouldn't be eating within 3 hours of sleeping. So for all of you guys who eat really, really late, I'm afraid that means you should be going to bed even later in order to sleep well, which doesn't tie in with a circadian rhythm. So this 6:30 meal, we'll finish putting things in our mouth by about 7, and it should all be fully processed by our guts, or by our systems, by our bodies, by the time we're properly asleep.
There's nothing worse than waking up feeling full. You know that
It's
feeling?
almost
when
horrible
you
going
eat
to bed
late?
feeling full.
Yeah.
Because of course fasting doesn't start when you stop eating. Fasting in your body starts when the food has been processed.
Morgan's saying, I often forget to eat. Do you know, I say that and people think I'm weird. It is quite, if you're busy, it's quite easy to forget to eat. And also it shows that you're not eating
By habit.
by habit, because it's 1 o'clock, you have to eat lunch. Who said that? Your mother, presumably.
We are habituated to eating 3 meals a day, meat and 2 veg for at least one of them. No, the answer is probably that we should abstain, because in evolutionary terms, we've been around for 3,600,000 years, and it's only in the last 200 years that we've had food available whenever we wanted it. Before that, you'd have to either go and hunt it, or gather it, or pick it, or prepare it, and you'd spend so much time hunting, gathering, picking, preparing, etc., that you wouldn't be able to eat between times. You'd eat when it was ready, and you'd eat as a family or a group or as a tribe or as a collection, and you'd eat all together because that was the efficient way of doing it.
It's funny, isn't it? So that that person's saying, mind you, I tell the children the opposite. So you're still telling your children to eat because it's mealtime. So why do we still do that? Because if the kids were here, I'd still say it's lunchtime.
That's because we provide for our children.
Right.
And for a long while, once you get to adulthood, then your body starts to have its own needs. But until then, we need to grow our children, and we need to grow them with all the right bits and pieces and all the variation that will create a great microbiome and a great set of health for our kids. But if we let them eat the wrong sort of foods, and what I mean by this is non-foods, foods that are primarily processed sugars are non-foods, they have no nutritional value for us, then our children will be obese. And 80% of obese adults were obese children. So to a certain extent, there is a responsibility of the parents. When you see an obese adult, there's a chance that the parents were irresponsible about feeding their children.
So are we clear about what we're doing?
Yep, we're going to be really
as low carb
disciplined.
as possible.
We're going to only eat between 11 and 7, and we're going to drink lots of water. Liquid. And with that water, I'm going to have some minerals to make sure that I get enough minerals into my system, because you can get something called hypotonia, which is just too much water, and you flush out the sodium from your body, and that can be very dangerous.
We don't really think about salt so much, as in not taking in too much salt, do we?
Well, salt is very prevalent in processed foods. Salt is used extensively in everything that you find in the center aisles of your grocery store. Around the outside, in the fresh stuff, you won't find that much salt. So if you're eating enough fresh food, you may have to add salt in order to get enough, and we certainly do. But we are also exercising heavily quite regularly, in my case, 4 hours a day. And on that basis, I'm sweating during that time. We live in a hot country, and I can sweat out a lot of sodium. So adding sodium is something that I have to do, but you may not have to add it. And if you're eating processed foods, you certainly shouldn't add it.
Kelly is asking so many questions. First of all, Philippa, how do you manage menopausal sleep disruption? I don't have any because I'm on HRT, so I'm pretty good. Also, what were the pills that we were taking that helped with sleep?
Oh, magnesium.
Was that what it was?
Yeah, magnesium is a lovely, and it was just a supplement. And yes, if you drink mineral water, I suggest a couple of drops of magnesium in your mineral water just to keep
but
your...
we were taking pills.
Yeah, but these were pills, but I mean, they were magnesium pills, basically. Magnesium is wonderful sleep enhancer.
What is that? I have high cholesterol, love cheese. Now, Ben Bickman says that high cholesterol is not...
I think what we ought to do
bad.
is, I'll send our conversation, or we'll post a link to our conversation with Ben Bickman, because rather than hear it from us, and a little knowledge could be dangerous, why not hear it from an expert, a proper professor who actually is brilliant. So what we'll do is we'll answer that one with the expert, and you can look through what he says about cholesterol. I like being slim more than anything in the world. I am happy when I'm slim, and I'm not. Who was it? It was Kate Moss with that famous quote.
You can never be too.
No. It was nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. But having said that, that probably isn't backed up in biological terms. However, for Caroline, it's a truism.
Yeah, I like the way my clothes fit when I'm slimmer.
Do we struggle though? I don't think we do, because we support each other.
I kind of let myself ride over Christmas, but I know that I'll pay for it. I'm aware of what I'm doing.
So do we struggle? Probably not. But do we support each other? Yes, we do. So if you can get a training partner in any of this, whether it's physically training or dietary training or just going to bed at the same time, if your partner, if you share your bed, goes to bed at the same time as you, it makes it a lot easier. If your partner is willing to do this sort of a discipline with you around your diet, it'll be much easier. Yeah. And if your partner is willing to exercise with you, it'll be much easier to stay disciplined.
Yeah, it's really tough if your husband's not going to eat the same as you. So what I would suggest maybe is what I used to do with you when you were not joining me on this journey, low carb journey, would be to get one of those packs of cooked rice or bake a potato and throw that in with whatever I'm eating.
And that worked fine. Baked potato was plenty of carbs for me to add to whatever yummy stuff you were cooking. And by the way, when you get rid of the carbs, your food tastes much better, especially when you get rid of the processed sugars. Much better. I mean, you're eating in glorious Technicolor instead of black and white.
I'm not weight training anymore. I've given up that goal because it was not making me happy. It was making me miserable. So I'm back to running and with some weights added in.
And you're happier?
I'm much happier. Yeah, much happier. I haven't because I gave that up just before Christmas. And therefore I've been eating a bit badly over Christmas.
We've
so I
definitely
need to
slipped, haven't we?
rejig myself.
We've slipped.
But it was fun, but it's fine.
It's been fine. Yeah. Oh, you're
It's
allowed
fine
to
to
slip.
slip.
Yeah. Well, and then you get back on the wagon and get back to a healthy lifestyle again. But we've certainly, I've overdone the chocolates. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's been. But the thing is that you're trying to eat all the chocolates in the house before you're not allowed to eat chocolates.
Got to finish them by
That's
Saturday.
Yeah, but you haven't.
No.
You haven't. I'm not hiding them. Morgan is saying my husband is with me exercising, dieting, but he's currently tucked up in bed and I'm still up. Morgan, go to sleep.
Go to bed.
You need
It's
your
midnight.
sleep. Thank you all so much for. Oh, do you eat the same meals or cook separately? We're eating the same stuff. As I said, I used to cook
I eat
carbs
more.
for David and add them to my non-carb food, but for 21 days, David is going strict low carb, and I'll be joining him, which means we will be eating the same food.
And it's all yummy
Different
because I'm
quantities.
so spoiled by my wife.
Morgan says, thanks, Mum and Dad. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night, Morgan. Have a good sleep.
Good morning, everybody else.
And have a wonderful day. Happy New Year. We will keep you posted on our journey. As I said, I'll be using my lumen to know if I'm fat burning or carb burning.
And I'll steal her lumen to see if I am. And I'll also buy those little sticks you can get at the chemist, which you can dip in urine and see if you're in ketosis, because I plan to be in ketosis for much of these 21 days.
Yeah.
So do you, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So it'll happen.
Good night from Oz. Good night, Oz.
Thank you very much.